We begin tonight with the escalation in the president's crackdown on illegal immigration. The FBI today arrested a judge at her own courthouse in Milwaukee. Judge Hannah Dugan is accused of intentionally obstructing the arrest last week of a migrant who was in the country illegally. CBS's immigration reporter Camilo Montoya-Galvez joins me now. So, Camilo, what about details? What do we know what led up to the judge getting arrested?
Maurice, this is a major escalation in that political and legal battle between the Trump administration and local authorities over the president's mass deportation efforts. The Justice Department has now filed criminal charges against this local judge in Wisconsin, accusing her of trying to assist a man in the country illegally of evading law enforcement officers by directing that man to use a side door in her courtroom to leave that premise and to refrain and prevent him from being arrested by DEA, FBI, and ICE agents who were looking to arrest him. Now, the administration has said that this man was ultimately arrested, but that the judge's actions put the public and law enforcement agents at risk, Maurice. But Democrats are saying that this is a dangerous move to arrest a sitting judge. Tom Homan, however, the administration's border czar, is doubling down, warning that if any local officials try to impede any immigration enforcement action or to conceal an unauthorized migrant, Maurice, they will be prosecuted.
Yeah, those are the facts as we know them for now. Separate case here, Camilo. We heard from the DOJ today that it's going to reinstate the records of 4,700 international students here on visa. What does that mean exactly for these students?
Just to level set, Maurice, over the past weeks, the Trump administration has been terminating the student visa registrations of thousands of foreign students here in the U.S. That is what underpins their legal ability to study and work in the U.S. lawfully. And that, of course, prompted a lot of concern among the students and their colleges, and they were scared that they could lose their legal status and face deportation. That triggered a flurry of lawsuits, and now the administration has announced a major and dramatic policy reversal by saying that it will reinstate those student visa registrations, allowing these students to remain in the U.S. for the time being. But the caveat, Maurice, is that ICE is currently working on developing a new policy to formalize the process for terminating those statuses at some point.
Okay, Camilo, thanks so much for the details there. To help us understand the legal issues here now, we are joined by CBS News legal contributor and Loyola Law School professor Jessica Levinson. Professor, good to see you. So what's your take on the situation with the judge arrested in Wisconsin, the potential ramifications of this? I don't know if I've ever seen any such thing.
I think that actually is a good way of talking about the potential ramifications here, in the sense that I don't think I've ever seen anything like this either. And this is I would say, dramatic escalation between the executive branch and the judicial branch. In this case, we're talking about a state judge. But my initial reaction is I similarly have not seen anything like it. There are obviously some legal questions as to whether or not her behavior really gives rise to obstruction. There are 2 obstruction counts here. And then there are questions about whether or not this will make other judges think twice before taking some actions and making some rulings. This is an incredibly robust embrace of the federal government's power, walking into a state courthouse and then arresting a judge.
At the same time, someone watching this might just say, look, the judge was preventing a guy from being arrested who the feds wanted to arrest. But I guess that's really at the heart of the case. So moving on here, is the Alien Enemies Act case, we've been following that one. The Justice Department outlined what they say are components of due process for people set to be deported under the wartime law. What do you make of the timeline these people are given? Is that going to be sufficient?
I don't know if that's going to be sufficient. And what's really important here is we're actually not even fighting about whether or not the administration can use the Alien Enemies Act. Instead, what we're fighting about is whether or not people have due process when the act is used. As we know, this case went up and down to the Supreme Court twice. excuse me, what the judges said is that individuals are entitled to due process, and now we're fighting about whether or not they get enough notice and opportunity to be heard prior to being deported.
And exactly what that means, right? So, final here, I want to ask about the case of the Columbia grad student, Mahmoud Khalil. Immigration officials confirmed they did not have an arrest warrant when they detained him. So does that change anything in this fight?
I don't know if that's going to change something. Obviously, it is helpful for his case, but I don't know that that is the question. I think the question is whether or not the immigration laws were used in a way that actually violates the First Amendment. So we have to see how that plays out.